Thank you all again for joining me on another episode of The Art of Comic Writing. I'm your host, Jorge Medina. That's George with a J. And today we are going to be chatting with a very talented writer and ask her about her experience in self-publishing. Way back in the day, in the early 2000s, before Facebook, before hashtags, iPhones, Doritos, Locos, Tacos, and for my sports fans, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Remember when they used to be the Seattle Supersonics? Anyway, I took the plunge. I took the plunge into self-publishing. I armed myself with 500 copies of my Russ 5377 comic book. And, I had dreams of being the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We hit the Big Apple Comic Con in New York City. And, we had a table. It was great. It was a dream come true. And an experience that would teach me very valuable lessons. One being I printed way too many books. But from a writing standpoint, publishing my first comic book also taught me a lot about the way I wrote comics. To have my story plotted out so that I wouldn't run out of steam or write myself into a corner by book 3, which is exactly what happened. By book 3, I had written myself into a corner, didn't know how to write myself out. Today, I'm going to be talking to a writer who has gone well beyond her third book in her series, Worthy Chaos. Plus, what are we doing at the end? Yes, the writing prompt. Okay, so without further ado, my guest today is the creator and writer of Worthy Chaos. She has told me that she can't imagine doing anything else with her spare time but writing, despite being dyslexic and thinking that writing was something that she would never be able to do for fun or any reason. Through persistence and dedication in the form of writing one-liners on a sheet of paper, and from there writing one paragraph at a time until she was able to put multiple paragraphs together and finally writing novellas. She has now published multiple comic books in her series. Please welcome Corissa Grant.
Hi.
There she is. What's going on, Corissa? How are you?
When you said publish, I'm like, no, I haven't. Oh, you mean release them? Yes, I have.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. You have done a lot, and you continue to do many things. So, congratulations on all the accomplishments you've already had. I'm happy that you agreed to do the show with me because this is very cool. For those who have been watching the show, they know that we are putting together here a show to talk to writers of comics, writers of any medium. But what I like to do is I like to bring in some of my indie friends and talk about the process and the art of comic writing. So here is Corissa. We're going to be talking at the end of it. I'm going to give her a little writing prompt, and then we're going to say goodbye. Don't forget to check the show notes for the most updated information about what she is going to be doing. So, is it possible to collaborate with another indie writer? If so, how do you make it work? If not, why
not? So if you mean like doing a story together, I can do my story with somebody else if I have my characters. I don't write for anybody else. I've been asked multiple times to work on series with other people. And I don't write any other story. This is it. My characters, that's it. Now we are collaborating on doing a crossover where we can have my characters interact with their characters. But as far as a separate story, it's not in my head because my character takes up my entire brain cell. That's all there is in there. She writes the story. I have no control of it. She would probably kill me if I wrote some other story anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're very deep into your own story, the Worthy
Chaos. So, after 100 issues, I'm a little deep in there. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to collaborating, I guess, with other indies, and like you said, crossovers, you are more apt to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because you still have your character in it. How does that work?
So the only way that I would approach it is the same way that I approach it with my co-writer. I would write my character and they would have to write their characters. So someone would have to go first and write what their character is doing. And then I would add my character in and talk to, add the speech between the two of them. The way my co-writer and I write is, I write the entire chapter first and then I send it to her and she will write Draven's point of view. So I can write their character and if they want, but I will never write anybody else's thoughts or speech on their character. You have to
Okay.
give your own character words. So
Right, right.
I'll write the action if they write the words. That's fine.
Gotcha. So they write their own dialogue,
Yeah,
almost like
because
this.
the character is their personality, you know. So I write all the characters in mine, but I never write Draven's. You know, Draven's thoughts and speech and feelings are all my co-writers. If I write it, it takes the life out of them.
Do you, so let's say for example, you're collaborating with somebody and they have their character, you have your character, they're in a scene together, they're having a conversation. If that other writer writes the dialogue for your character, do you have a problem with that? Not necessarily a
Yeah.
problem with it, but would you then do you go ahead and change what they're saying because it doesn't sound like them? Or are you sometimes like, wow, that actually does sound like them?
I
I'll keep
would
it.
not let them write it. Like
No.
I can't the editor is not even allowed to change it.
Change.
And Lori tries to change it all the time. And I said, that's not how people talk. That's why people
Right.
like my dialogue. My dialogue is how you talk, not how you write a proper sentence. You know,
Gotcha.
we use the word ain't, you know, you're not supposed to, but that's how people talk. You know,
Right.
that's just how it is. And if it talks too proper, it doesn't sound, you know, realistic. And I've
Mm.
been asked, like, how does you know, how does the dialogue come out so well? And I was like, well, it's the only thing I'm capable of writing. But I write it like one talks. The character talks, and that's how it is. And obviously, you know, there's commas, or you know,
Right.
commas are not my
Grammatical
thing.
mistakes.
Yeah, I always put the comma in the exact opposite of place it's supposed to be. Sometimes Lori will give me a suggestion, and if I think my character would say it, then I would. Like she said, she's added 2 suggestions, and I completely took them because my character would totally say it. She added something like, and I say this all the time, so it was definitely something my character would say. My character stabs a pole through the zombie's eye,
Mm.
and Lori writes back and says, "It's all fun and games." And I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what she would say." So there was that, and there was
Fantastic.
another time where Serafina was about punch somebody, and then she goes, "But wait, there's more." And I was like, "Yeah, I could totally see that one." So yeah, there's been 2 instances where Lori suggested something and I took it, but
Gotcha.
mostly no one speaks for me. I trust Lori at this point, but no one else. So.
Yeah. And Lori is your editor. She serves as
Yeah,
your
she's
editor.
my so my brother edits the commas and everything, and then Laura comes in and makes sure that the sentences are proper. And
Gotcha.
mostly, I have this horrible trait of writing really long sentences. So Lori,
Mm.
more than anything, breaks up my sentences. Where she's like,
Gotcha.
"These are 3 sentences, not one." I was like, "All right." That's her goal, and she said that I've gotten way better because when we first started, I'd have like 2 pages of notes, and now there's like 4 sentences. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm
Right.
getting better."
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And so that leads me actually, that's a good segue to my next question. You're talking about the length of sentences and how you've gotten better at it. Can you remember what was the hardest scene you ever had to write? What was it and what was difficult about it?
Writing a fight is one of the hardest
Mm.
because I am not really good at remembering every single action. Like I'm just like, he punches him out. That's not how you're supposed to write it. So I did have to go back and double check. And then my artist is great. So I'm just like, he
Mhm.
punches this guy, and then my artist figures it out. But generally I would say writing a fight scene because you want it to display, you know, action, and you want them to do
Mhm.
certain things, and that is that. I've never been stuck on anything. But emotionally she gets injured, and you know, she thinks she's going to die, so there's this thing between them where the angel tells her, if you're going to die anyway, you might as well help the angels out by sacrificing your soul for the weapon, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
um and that's a really important scene, and it's really hard because you're coming at it as your characters are like bleeding out or suffering or whatever. So emotionally it's pretty tough to write that out. My co-writer cries every time she writes my characters. Something happens to my poor character, but yeah, I've
So
never been stuck on a
what,
thing.
so how do you get past it? Like when it's emotional like that and you're kind of like and you're it's hard to write because it is emotional. How do you get past that? How do you break through and say, okay, I got to get this done? What do you do?
I have to think about how it's fixed or a happier time when it, and we always know how it's going to end, but even if we know it's going to end happily, like after, we still have a really hard time. It's like, we know. And then we do this thing, so whoever ends it, and it's usually me ending it on like the worst note, I have to always tell my co-writer, hurry up and fix it. You have to hurry up and fix it, because the characters are in this emotional state, because I have to write the emotional heartache of it, and she needs to fix it on her side, because Draven's got to do whatever he has to do. So all I have to say is, you have to fix it. So she has to go and write it as soon as possible. So she'll fix that one part, so that it quickly says what happens after to fix it, and then she goes back and writes the rest of it, so our characters cannot torture us for the rest of the time that we wait.
So your writing partner, she writes Draven. Right, and then you write your characters.
Well, I write first. Yeah,
you write first. So what is the name of your character?
Seraphina's mine.
Seraphina's yours. Seraphina and Draven. How do you come up with your character name?
Well, actually, it's kind of clever about my character's name. So I looked up originally characters, female angel names, because she's an angel, or an angel descendant. So the reason why I chose Seraphina is because a seraphim is the most powerful angel level. And so it's a hint at not only her being an angel, but at the fact that she's one of the most powerful angels out there. Draven, it's from The Crow.
that was easier. That was straight up.
Yeah.
The Crow was a great movie. Have you read the graphic novel?
Oh, I have drawn from it. I've sketched from it since 1993. I've owned the graphic novel, which, by the way, is not only right here, but it's signed by James O'Barr.
I was just gonna ask you if you ever met him. He's a really cool dude. Really.
He's amazing, and he took my issue 1, but now I need to go find him again to sign, because I want him. I'm having everyone that influenced me, or any of the genres I like, sign my hardcover. I have one hardcover, and they're all like signing different pages. So I had like most of the cast of Supernatural sign it already, and I need the rest. So now he needs to sign it, and then I want to give him a copy, because everyone gets a copy that signs it. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's nice. Do you approach all of your character names in your story that way, where you're kind of looking for meanings behind their, other than Draven? Do you approach it that way?
Yeah, I do. Usually I'll Google either words that mean this, or like I had to do research to find the name of the company of the worst villain in the entire book. And I spent like 2 days on this, like last week, trying to figure it out, because let me just tell you something. I assume they know this. There is so many companies out there that are using Latin dark names that mean like evil, shadows. I mean, I'm just like, do these people know that they're using like the most evil names ever? And I finally found out the name that wasn't taken, because everyone was taken. It was shadows, evil. It was everything was taken. So I found a really good one. But it means villain in Latin, but it's a pharmaceutical company, and it's also a poisonous plant. So that's what it's called. It's like Seculus or something, Enterprises, and we have like several Easter eggs in it. So that's an Easter egg, because it means villain in Latin. I mean, she's gonna make a joke about it, because she obviously knows Latin, because she's a supernatural. She has to know Latin. But the joke is, the address is it's 7734, which backwards and upside down is hell, and it's Umas Street, because Umas is Latin for elm, so it's like Elm Street from Nightmare on Elm Street. So we have like 4 Easter eggs just in one address.
That's cool. I like that. I like the fact that
I do take the names very seriously. I hate coming up with names, but yeah, I take it seriously.
Yeah. How long does that process take you? Like,
is it like 2 weeks?
Yeah, it takes you a while. Yeah. Well, you're doing a lot of research, and I think that it's fun. I do the same, like what you're talking about, right? Like using, whether it's, I think I have in one of my stories that I was looking for the name of the place where they live, right? And so it's about empaths, and the story is about an empath. And so I looked to see what the word empath, or the origin of the word, came back to, it's German, right? The word in German is one way. So I decided to flip it and turn it backwards and pronounce it backwards. Nice. And then it became the name of where they live. Right. But that's the kind of fun that I have with it. Right. Because you're right. I mean, yeah, you can call him Charlie. You can call him, you can call him, Bob. And
Too easy.
there's a name, but what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's give them a name that means something. I think Serafina is great. The fact that,
Yeah.
that you went, was that something that started out from the beginning, like when you first conceived the story, or was
Yep.
that something that you later on said, you know what, that name sucks. Let me change that
Nope.
up a little bit before
First
the time.
one.
What is the most valuable piece of advice you've been given about?
You
Other
ask
than don't use thought bubbles. What
um
is it?
I'm gonna say ask everyone for their advice, but listen to yourself first, because I have amazing creators that help me out a lot, but I was so stubborn on some things. Like Lori, and she meant this out of love, because
Of course.
debt and all that. But Lori's like, you got to slow down. You got to slow down. You're releasing too many too fast, and you can't afford it. It's like, whatever. And she's right, but I can't stop. And then I had, like Pops and 15 other people told me, do not redo issue 1. And I wanted to listen to them so bad because it's $5,000 I was losing. So bad. But I could not do it. I could not look at issue 1 and then look at issue 2 and let it be okay. I just could not. And several reasons. Mostly I'm stubborn and I love my characters. And the way Jonas DaCosta draws them is how they are meant to be drawn. But also because issue 1 it's what they see first. What if they don't like the art and then they go on to issue 2? They might not go on to issue 2 if they don't like it. Or what if they do love it and then they get upset that issue 2 isn't the same? So I could not, in good conscience, not redo issue 1. But I wanted to listen so bad. I really did. But you know what? I got super lucky that I did because it worked out. Issue 1 looked amazing. And I'm so glad that I did it. But yeah, it was a hard choice. Don't listen to anyone else when it comes to certain things. Like, with mine, I don't use all capitals. Our lettering is a little bit different.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm sure some people hate that, but there's a couple of reasons why we do it. One, I'm dyslexic, so all capitals, they meld together. So it's very difficult. The other thing is that it's a novel. You're reading a novel that we wrote. And to me, they always look like they're shouting with capitals, and I just couldn't do it.
Do you have trouble reading comics when they're, uppercase, all of them?
So when I used to read it as a kid, I didn't have trouble per se, but sometimes I have to read it over again.
Gotcha.
Because they to me sometimes it's just one block, So to find the letters in between is a little bit trickier. But it didn't stop me from reading them. I just enjoy the sentence case a lot easier. It also reminds me of my novels. So it's kind of stuck. So it was a huge risk to do.
Yeah,
and I knew it was when I started, because I said some people, traditional comics aren't going to like it. It's not. That's why I make sure that every page on my Kickstarter has the lettering, so you can see what you're getting into, because it's important.
Right.
Yeah, but I knew it was a risk. But I thought it was so weird that my brother, who's been reading comics for 40 years, he didn't even know they were capital. And he didn't even know mine were different. He goes, oh, what are you talking about? And he went and he goes, oh my God, they are. And I was like, 40 years, John, 40 years. But yeah, and I said, which one would you do? You've been doing this for 40 years. I prefer sentence case, but I'm going to take your advice on this. I'm going to try to take your advice on this. And he said, I like the sentence case. And I was like, well, if you like sentence case, then it's worth the risk. And that's how we went. So
good for you.
I might lose some readers on it, but hopefully the loyal ones will just read it and
Yeah. Listen, I think to me, as long as the story is great, and it is, they're just hooked at this point. You can't stop reading.
You gotta get them addicted first, it's the cliffhanger, man. You gotta end on the cliffhanger.
We're gonna take a little break here, Corissa, but that's great advice. Listen to the advice, but know when to take it. I think that's great. On the other side of the break, we're going to be talking a little bit about publishing and how it might have changed the way you write. So we're going to take a little break and be right back. And we're back. We're back with Corissa Grant. We are talking writing with her. And here's the final question of the day. And I like to make this like the topic of the show. How did publishing your first book change your process of writing? Did it change it?
How did it change my process of writing? It hasn't, but it did make me more aware of dialogue. Because
Yeah.
when I first wrote my first script, I was told by the letterer, did you want to see any of the art or did you want all dialogue? And that made me realize that I had to space it out just a tad.
Right.
So my first script turned out to be issues 1 through 3 because that's how much dialogue there was. So I was not aware of dialogue. Obviously I was, but not to the extent of, well, it covers the art. So processing a comic book changed that. And the other thing I would have to say, and it's probably not a big deal, but originally when I wrote, I pictured things as a movie when I was writing, and now I picture them in panels.
Hmm.
So I'm like, oh, this would be such a cool panel. And magically, my artist can see what's in my head and does it very
Magically.
well. Yeah, some kind of black magic he uses. I'm not quite sure how. But he can see what's in my head. And if he didn't see it, he makes it better. So either way. But yeah, dialogue was a huge thing because I don't want to shorten the dialogue. I like,
Yeah.
what I, and then, I do shorten some of it, but mostly I like to keep a lot of what we wrote in the story, and all of it's like, oh, I really like it when she says that. So I'm horrible at deciphering what should be in and what shouldn't be in. So yeah.
So when you, I guess, when you write your scripts, how do you write your scripts? Are they just like basically a page that says this is happening on this page and this is the dialogue on the page, or are you breaking it up into panels now? Like, how are
They're
you
broken
writing?
up into panels.
Yeah.
So what I generally do is I separate my entire book into between 9 and 11,000 words, and I end in a cliffhanger I want. And there's always a cliffhanger. So between 9 and 11,000, there's probably like 2 I can choose or 3. But what I do is I separate all of them. And then when I have it, I go through and break up like how it happens. Because the way my writing, it's very simplistic. It tells the story. So how my panels are written are pretty much how I write, what they're doing, what they're saying, whatever. Which is why it wasn't meant to be a novel. It was definitely meant to be a comic book. I just didn't know it for, 11 years. But I separated and pretty much just panel, it's page, panel, and then whatever they do, and then dialogue. And I don't do it in the format. You're supposed to like, I know the proper way to do it. I don't do anything proper. You're supposed to like, space over and then have the dialogue like in the middle, but it annoyed the hell out of me and I stopped doing it. So I just separate the lines and I put whatever sound is there is underneath. So yeah, it is my artist could not do it. Like Lori has it. Lori from Path of the Pale Rider has it where she just pretty much gives him pages and he takes what he wants from it.
Right.
But my artist needs to be told exactly what to do, and then he can take liberty to it. He takes liberty on all the fight scenes because I'm just like, destroy somebody for me. But but generally, yeah, everything is panel. He'll change the panels though. This is the only, and it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but I thought it was a bad thing. So now he's not doing the lettering. SK is.
Right.
He doesn't follow my panels. So afterwards, I have to go through and match all my dialogue to which panel it actually belongs to.
Right.
And at first I was like, oh, this is going to be so annoying. But it isn't, because while I'm going through, I will change things because of the way he drew their expression or something they're doing. And I was like, oh, he had his mouth open. She should be shouting something. So, it should be something like that. So it actually did make it a little bit better. And it helped a lot. But at first I was like, oh, I'm going to kill you. But now I'm okay with it.
does he take a look at how much dialogue there is on that, say, for example, that panel?
Oh yeah, he has to.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
think, right? Because if you have a lot of dialogue, you're going to need a lot of space around the character or somewhere so that the letterer can come in and put all, especially if you don't want to cut that down, because if they're saying something important, you don't want to take that out of the story.
The toughest part is Draven's thoughts, because they're like 5 sentences long. They are not short thoughts. That guy does not shut up in his head. I mean, he's awful. But yeah, my I think it helps that my artist, who hated doing it, originally did the lettering. So he knows how much has to be there.
You mentioned about panels and the way you look at things now. It's different. How did that happen? And how hard was it to make that change?
I really think my mind automatically did it. Because I didn't I don't know. I know there's a saying for it. I don't know what the word is, but there's a saying where when someone talks, you automatically see everything as a movie, which is sometimes great and sometimes completely awful. And my mind automatically sees everything. My husband sees everything in colors. I see things in pictures. So I pretty much picture what's happening and I write what I see is pretty much how I'm writing. And I think that has helped the dyslexia because I'm not, I never was able to, like, when I studied, I didn't bother studying. The day before I had to memorize the page so that I can look back at sentences I want and then write it exactly how I saw it because it was hard for me to read it when the first time came around. So it's just easier to memorize stuff. So seeing it as panels, it helps to be able to judge what can fit in a panel, like how much you might, because sometimes I'll describe something because it's in the room and I don't know if he yet sees that, like, did you have to see the pen on the side of the table yet, or can you wait? And then, like just now, he just sent me 9 pages today and they were awesome. But she grabs the pencil and she goes and threatens the guy with it, So I was like, yeah, you gotta make sure the pencil's on the table if you're going to show the table. But if you don't show the table, you don't have to show the pen. So it's kind of one of those things. I think that was actually the one of the hardest things besides dialogue, switching from a novel to a comic book, is that I can write whatever I want. Oh yeah, she grabs the thing off the table. But if you've been in this room for 4 pages in a comic book and you didn't write that there's a table with stuff on it, then she can't grab something off of it and you have to go back. So that was important. Yeah, it's important to think about what needs to be in the room. And I go back all the time, like, oh, I forgot to write that there's this door. There's a door to the left. So that's a little bit different when you're writing a novel. You just walk to a door and walk through it.
Right. Well, the other thing too is that you can't keep anything from your artist. So like, I know that we got to forget that what you're writing right now is not for the audience, it's for your artist, right? So if there's a big reveal happening in page 22, but you're setting it up in page 5, your artist has to know that reveal is coming, so that if he wants to inject little subtle hints throughout the pages, he can, or she can also do that.
We actually had that in issue 2, because in issue, at the end of issue 2, when they walk into the room, it had to show the balcony that they climb up, because that's a necessary thing. So I had to say, this is the balcony and this is why I need it. And I also said, you have to do, and he didn't catch this, so I don't know how it was in bold letters. We just started, so I'll let it go. But I had in bold letters, it has to be candles in the chandelier. And he put light bulbs. And I was like, no, it has to be candles because it's going to set the place on fire. He was like, oh, so I had to go back and fix it. So it helps to explain why it's got to be this. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because they may see it a different way. They may think, oh, it would be cool if I did this here. But it's like, no. I already have something planned for that. So let's keep it. All right. Well, Corissa, we are down to almost the final things here. I have I have a bonus question for you.
Okay.
All right. So the bonus question is, what is your favorite YouTube channel and why is it Get Your Meds?
Well, it's my favorite because it has the best host ever, obviously.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I love watching you. I think you're hysterical, and you say some things about me, which is a total bonus. But that's not the only reason. But I love watching your show. You're great.
I appreciate it, Corissa. So one final thing before you go. Now, I've been doing this on every show so far. And for those watching, it's a writing prompt, right? We're writers. Sometimes we get stuck. We don't know what to write. Not Corissa. She's got 100 issues. Great. She's good. But sometimes we do get stuck, and sometimes we need something to kind of like, get the juices flowing. So that's why I'm doing the writing prompt. Now, this writing prompt, you don't know what it is. I'm going to give it to you in a few minutes. Sit down for like 15 minutes if you have them, and just write, whether it's a scene, whether it's a short story, whatever you want to do in 15 minutes. Write this, and the prompt is going to be a poster of a lost pet on a collapsed light post. Okay. How did it get there? What happened? Who is this pet? What is this pet? Is it, think about it, write it down. You don't have to do it right now, but when you get a chance, do your thing and write it down. But Corissa, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. And everyone, the show notes will have all of the information for Corissa. And you guys can check out the website. You can check out her crowdfunding campaigns that she does for Worthy
Search
Chaos.
Worthy Chaos on Kickstarter, and we're always there.
Yeah, always there, always there. So
Always
yes,
there.
so check that out. Check that out. It's a great story. I've read it. It's amazing. Thank you, Corissa, for
Thank you.
being on, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And that, everyone, was Corissa Grant. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of the show? What do you think of the comments about advice? What is the best advice you've gotten about writing? Put it down in the show notes. Let me know. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Smash that little bell that says notify me, because I do post these every week. I just don't tell you exactly what day. I don't have a set day for posting these. But if you hit that notify me bell, as soon as a new one comes up, boom, you'll be able to see it. Don't forget to do that. One more thing. Next week, we have another show coming up. And don't forget, I have the prompt. Don't forget the prompt. A poster of a lost pet on a collapsed light post. How did that light post collapse? Who is this pet that's missing? What is the pet that's missing? Whose pet is it? So many questions. Write down the answers. Put them down below. Make sure that you check out the show notes for the latest information about Corissa Grant's work. So make sure you do that. And don't forget, guys, keep writing. Peace.